Hello John, today we're going to talk about Francis Ledwidge.
Hello Oliver. Yes, Francis Ledwidge, he was a poet that wrote over 200 poems. He was from Slane, County Meath, from a cottage in that town where he was born, and which is now a museum to his memory. He was just he was just 30 when he was killed in 1917 in Ypres, Belgium, in the First World War. He had enlisted in 1914. Now, the background to Francis in this business of enlisting has various elements attached to it.
Okay. He was also known as the poet of the blackbirds.
Well, he was. As a matter of fact, a name that was given to him was the Blackbird of Slane. But he wrote about nature, and he incorporated nature with events in some strange way. As a matter of fact, a lot of poets, including Wordsworth and Yeats and Keats and all these ones, spoke about nature. For example, Wordsworth said, 10,000 daffodils saw I at a glance, tossing their heads in sprightly dance. He made other poems about nature. And likewise, William Butler Yeats made a poem about lake water lapping at your feet, and published it, what's this, and linnet's wings, for peace comes dropping slow. He wrote a poem about Drumahare in County Leitrim, where he lived nearby. So Francis was in that tradition. He come from humble circumstances. There was a biggish family, and his father died when he was quite young. Now, his mother, there was 9 family. His mother at the time was advised for some of them to be put into care or orphanages, but she refused. She took on work in various houses. She worked from nearly dawn to dusk and kept the family together. She was a marvellous woman, and he has 1 or 2 poems in praise of her. Francis went to school until he was 13 and a half, which was good. Some of his early poems were printed in the Drogheda Independent. So the importance of local newspapers in Francis's development was very important. Also, a nearby neighbour, Lord Dunsany, became a friend and a mentor, and made Francis known to a wider public, including the poets at the time. So he was a great help and enabler, and saw the talent that Francis Ledwidge had.
I think he introduced him to Yeats.
He did.
Yeah.
He introduced him to the poets. He had great belief in Francis. So that was a big influence in his life. Now, in the meantime, Francis was into other places. For example, he was the secretary of the Irish Volunteers, which was founded to look for Irish freedom, which was started because of the Unionists in the north founding the Ulster Volunteer Force with the connivance of the British government to establish, to import arms, which they did without let or hindrance. We were promised home rule during that period by the British government, which was introduced in the Commons but defeated in the Lords. the people in the north, the Unionists, objected to it, and Lord Carson came into power there. So it was a very unstable political situation. Francis was also in the Mead Guardian Association, which was a kind of a county council sort of affair, and he was in that. Now, Francis at the time was one of the few, when the war broke out. Redmond was the leader of the Irish Volunteers, and he suggested that in order for to get the Home Rule, he advised all the volunteers to enlist in British Army and save civilization. So it caused a split. 175,000 volunteers followed Redmond, 13,500 followed Pearse and others that objected. Francis Ledwidge was one of these people that objected to Redmond's call to volunteer for the British Army. But he was insulted and abused by the people in the volunteers in Slane and in Mead, because he wouldn't follow the Redmond's things. He was a lone voice, him and his brother Joe and about 3 others. So that was Francis's background. He also was going with a girl called Emily Coley or something, and a name that her surname just escapes me. But he was going with a lady, and he even wrote poems about her. But she fell for another, a man called O'Neill. A tragedy occurred there, and I think that was one of the reasons, because she was squaring him around the town, or he was squaring this lady that Francis was in love with, wanted to ward, and it was his girlfriend. So this fellow was squaring around the town, and Ledwidge was getting abused about it from friends when he would be having a drink somewhere. So in the meantime, as I say, Redmond was doing this, so he enlisted on the rebound in the army. Okay, in the British Army. He went up to Enniskillen and then enlisted in the Enniskillen Fusiliers, which Lord Dunsany had also done. But Lord Dunsany was disgusted when he found it that Redmond that Francis Ledwidge had done that, because he had offered him a home and a room to pursue his poetry and give him a stipend, give him a wage.
He's very kind.
He was very kind, but don't forget we were in an unstable situation in the country at that time, as we have been in with regard to the north up to recently. So this was the background, and poor Francis enlisted with a broken heart. Anyways, one of the things, some of his poems, this is one that I found, and was about June. The wind wheeled north to gather in the snow. No, soon the swallows will be flying south. The wind wheeled north to gather in the snow. Even the roses spilt on youth's red mouth will soon go down the road all roses go. Very perceptive. And this is 1 to 1 dead. But sorrow and silence are the words trendy, he says. The silence for you and the sorrow for me. This was about the girl that she died. She married this individual and went to live in Manchester and died 7 months afterwards in childbirth. He was stationed over there at the time, and he took 5 days off to go and attend her funeral in Slane. I mean, there's a story there. The silence for you and the sorrow for me. And then when he was in about a month, I think, before he was killed, he wrote, wherever he was, there was a broken bush, and he says, "This is a song a robin sang this morning on a broken tree that calls across the world to me. I mean,
very nice.
Isn't that perceptive?
Absolutely.
Isn't that a poet of the best order with what would I call it, a great future ahead of him. By the way, the girlfriend that died, whose funeral he attended to, his family didn't consider Ledwidge good enough. He was from a cottage, whereas she was a farmer's daughter. And the guy she married would have been of the class of, would have been from a similar type of class as Francis Ledwidge, but he was a more of a, whatever it was, different, and for some reason or other this unfortunate girl fell for him, and she met her maker quite soon afterwards, really. And Francis, one time he was in, his mother got him a job as a grocer's apprentice in Rathfarnham in Dublin, no, in Rathgar in Dublin. And that would have been a good area. I knew a man that got a job there as an apprentice in the bar business, Danny Morris from Kells, become a Deputy Lord Mayor of Dublin, Fianna Fáil councillor, had 2 pubs. He come on well. He was from Kells, I knew him. Anyways, Francis said this: I could not bear the brick hedge about his time in Dublin. He walked back one night, he left us after being there not too long, walked back to Slane. And he was in the shed in the back of the house, and his brother Joe, he was very close to Joe. Joe saw him and brought him in. He wanted to go back to home. And anyways, he also, Thomas MacDonagh, one of the signatures of the proclamation that was executed by the British in Kilmainham jail, along with Pádraig Pearse and all the other signatures, a lament for him, because he knew him and he was close to him. He shall not hear the bittern cry in the wild sky where he is lain, nor voices of the sweeter birds above the wailing of the rain. Nor shall he know when loud March blows through slanting snow her fanfare shrill, blowing to me to flame the golden cup of many an upset daffodil. But when the dark cloud leaves the moon, and pastures pure with reedy weeds, perhaps he'll hear her low at morn, lifting her horn in pleasant meads. This was Francis. He saw beauty in everything. He was able. He had this marvelous gift, and it was great. There would have been great poems coming from Francis had he lived. Some of his songs, Lord Dunsany got some of his poems printed, and he got money for that. That was worth about 6 months' wages.
Very good.
On the road. The song in the woods, the ship on the sea, the song is for you and the ship is for me. Now, as I say, he wrote 200 poems. I've tried to just give a flavour of some of his observations, which, while he spoke about nature, you can see that there was elements in it referring to the human person. He wrote a lovely one about his mother, which will be for another day. But this is a book that I've read, and an autobiography about him, and some beautiful poems. Here's one here to Ailish of the Fair Hair. That's the lady I was telling you about. Here's one about his mother. You just read a little bit about it. God made my mother on an April day, from sorrow and the mist along the sea, Lost birds and wanderer songs and ocean spray, and the moon loved her wandering jealousy. He wrote that. Now here's another little bit I'll read about it. The last stanza. Kind heart she had for all on hill or wave, whose hopes grew wings like ants to fly away. I bless the God who such a mother gave this poor bird-hearted singer of a day. You know, he had such a here's the one about a blackbird. A blackbird singing on a moss upholstered stone, bluebells swinging, shadows wildly blown. A song in the wood, a ship in the sea, the song was for you and the ship was for me. A blackbird singing, I hear in my troubled mind, bluebells swinging, I see in the distant wind. But sorrow and silence are the wood's threnody, the silence for you and the sorrow for me. So anyway, that I gave you that background to why he enlisted, but also the people that were enlisting were regarded as heroes. There was great praise for them. The Irish nation is a very fickle nation, because in Jig time they turned against these people, these thousands of Irish men and women. Well, men that were killed in the war, they were forgotten, ignored and vilified. Those that survived couldn't get a job. I'm not surprised that we have the situation now where the family stores are gone and no more. The government of this country has let us down badly. They have had no vision, in my mind, for the good and the welfare of the Irish people, and they're aided and abetted now by a bunch of, by the media and all the rest of it, to the detriment of the welfare and the prosperity of ordinary Irish men and women.
Thank you very much, John, for giving us that lovely story about Francis Ledwidge.
Thank you.
I think he was a fantastic poet. Thank you.